off top. In the pores of your face live families of tiny, tiny mites that crawl out when you're sleeping and eat the oil. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. Throw your hands up. We are presented by Allstate. Yes, throw your hands up, Bill. I'm sorry that I made you uncomfortable with this very interesting fact. Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show, joined on Monday, as usual, by the great Bill Barnwell and the vanilla snack, Charlie Kravitz. We had a lot of good football today, but I feel like we got sidetracked by
face mites.
By face mites, yeah.
So sort of like reminds me of Gulliver's Travels, the Lilliputians. They said they could see all of Gulliver's pores.
Well, inside those pores are 8-legged arachnids that procreate inside your pores and then eat the oils.
Domonique, what are you wearing?
Oh, championship swag. You're looking at the head coach of,
or listening to.
Oh, yeah. You're listening to or looking at the head coach of 2 flag football championship games in the past 2 weekends. So, rocking my championship swag. Don't be jealous. You guys don't got no chips. Nobody? No comment? No one? Just congratulations.
I was
nice
thinking,
job. Way to go, coach.
I was trying to think of a Joel Embiid joke about you punching me. But I couldn't come up with one.
Why would I punch you?
I don't know. But that was the whole thing. I'd be punching you, and then the joke didn't work. And yeah.
You don't have to punch anybody. It's easy to make a Joel Embiid joke. I said I won a championship. That's sitting right there for you. If you want to make an Embiid joke, it's there for you to make.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
All right, football time.
Before we get to NFL stuff, Bill, have you ever heard the term piss missile?
Oh, God. Here we go with this. It's ridiculous.
Yes, right? Or no?
Yes. I have.
Okay, good. I got lambasted.
Oh, God.
Skewered, made fun of.
Nobody did.
I was a laughing stock for describing a Matthew Stafford throw. I was actually a Geno throw to JSN in the back of the end zone. I was like, look at that piss missile. And
we didn't make fun of you. We just were like, what? Piss missile. And then he was like,
it's still nasty, though.
Yeah. He was like, have you never heard that before?
That throw was nasty.
No, I've never heard people call a throw a piss missile. And then he got all upset and act like he was the cool kid who uses cool terminology and called us nerds. He's like, I bet you want to know about the DVOA. I was like,
what was the CPOE on that throw? What's across the line of scrimmage?
Why do we care? Like, no one was even making fun of you. We just said we hadn't heard of it.
I heard the tone.
There was no tone.
There was a tone.
I don't use piss missile. I've never heard it before. I didn't play baseball growing up. Maybe that's why. It's like bullet. You threw a bullet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Frozen rope?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stinger. I've heard that.
Stinger's a golf term. Big golf guy.
I'm not a golf guy. I never heard or zips it in there. Like, there's lots of terminology that I've heard. Because it doesn't make sense to me. And maybe we shouldn't waste any time trying to figure out the etymology of piss missile, because I feel like
that was exactly what I was thinking about. Charlie, do we know the etymology of piss missile?
I don't. I assume it was just
like a stream?
Yeah.
Kind of like a frozen rope?
Yeah, exactly.
Can we talk about the games now?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you.
We definitely can. Okay, hard pivot, guys. We should talk about the biggest game of the day. I don't know if it was the best game we had today, but it was the one that was the most hyped and theoretically has the most implications for NFC seeding and teams that we thought maybe were the 2 best teams in the NFC, and that's the Lions win over the Green Bay Packers. A lot was talked about going into this because there was driving rain and Jared Goff hadn't played a game outside today and he was wearing 2 gloves, and Sean McVay famously was like, that guy doesn't play outside that well. Well, they ran the ball incredibly well. Jared Goff was totally fine. Jordan Love re-pulled his groin, but the Lions were able to win despite a Brian Branch ejection early in this game. And I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit on this question that I asked you guys. How big is the gap between the Lions and the rest of the NFC North after what you saw today?
Well, I mean, I guess the gap is pretty huge right now, given the comparison that we had with the Packers, because they were the closest opponent. I'm not sure if the gap is that huge for the rest of the conference, but yeah, they run the shit out of the ball, which like travels everywhere and makes them a really tough team to beat. And their offense it's like a high-scoring, super efficient offense that's built on the running attack. When you think of high-scoring, efficient offenses, that's not where you think. And the running attack is something that feels a lot more concrete and stable going forward. And it looks like they're going to have plenty of home playoff games, or at least 2 home playoff games coming up. So they're going to be so comfortable in that. I think they have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. We'll see what happens when McCaffrey comes back.
That's good.
Rest of the pack. Oh, Packers got it. That was a mistake. McCaffrey is the big question mark. Is like if he can turn this 49ers offense back into the juggernaut it was when he was healthy. That's the last question. I know that's not in their division, but for the conference.
Leaving aside other teams, like let's talk about the Lions themselves, because there were these holes you could poke in the Lions as maybe, situations where it wouldn't be ideal. Okay, Jared Goff struggles a lot when you get pressure on him. And we had that Vikings game where it was, okay, this is Brian Flores. This is the, the terrifying, schemer who dials up all these, unblocked rushers. And Jared Goff destroyed pressure in that game. Now you bring him outside into the rain. Jared Goff has those tiny hands. He's terrible outside. And Jared Goff was much better than Jordan Love in this football game. He was, I think, 11 for 11 to start this game. And it wasn't exactly a ton of deep bombs, but he was moving the ball efficiently. He was making good decisions. His balls were accurate. He was doing things that we don't think Jared Goff is capable of typically in subpar weather. And then you flip it. We've talked all year about how this defense needed a second pass rusher before Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. Now Aiden Hutchinson's gone. They don't have their first pass rusher. Marcus Davenport, who was supposed to be the number 2 guy, is also out for the year. And the Lions defense seems fine. It doesn't seem incredible, but it's not like the defense is holding them back. I think all these things that we held up as flaws, as things that might catch them on the way to being great, we've seen them, just barrel over them. And to me, I think that makes them comfortably the best team in football, because you could poke holes in a lot of these other football teams, and the holes you can poke in the Lions don't seem to be mattering.
Yeah, they ran the ball against loaded boxes well. I think that's one of the signs that, especially this time of year, when there's a team that can do exactly what they're telling you they're going to do and you can't stop it. It's like, we're going to run the ball, and their O-line and their running backs are such. And it's not just them running the ball for 4 or 5 yards a pop. It's also that they break off big runs that are like game-breaking runs that change the complexion of the game. And so this team has been pretty impressive. And Jared Goff was perfect in play action, which is exactly where he wants to be. When they have you playing the game that they want to play and they're running the ball well and they play action off of it, it feels like the opportunity for the big mistakes, they don't give themselves a chance to give the turnovers that will throw them off. And the thing that I've been harping on for 2 seasons now about this team is how their defense, I think, is going to get in the way. And it hasn't. It hasn't yet. And like you mentioned, they've gotten even thinner, and it still hasn't gotten in the way. So, yeah, of any of the teams in NFC, they've been the most consistent, and consistent in a way that feels genuine and believable. So we have to call them a serious outfit, which I was reluctant to do for a long time.
Their offense is a machine.
Yeah.
Now,
Thank you for that contribution.
Side,
That's nice.
Oh, I thought you were going to dive
side,
deep.
Charlie was trying to find more obscure terms he could use to describe very fast football throws.
Well, we should talk about someone who was actually struggling to spin the pill today, despite having frying pans for mitts, and that's Jordan Love. Because coming into this year, he sort of became, your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback. He was the hyped guy. He had sort of surpassed even like C.J. Stroud taking the second-year leap. Oh, this guy's going to be in that group with Lamar and Allen and Mahomes. Well, he has pulled his groin twice this season, sprained his MCL, and has 10 interceptions, which leads the NFL. He's been much more erratic, and this is a guy who they paid a massive contract after 8 starts, or 8 good starts. Yeah, I guess he played a full season. But 8 starts where he looked like a competent quarterback. I still think he's very good, but this has been obviously unsettling to see the way he has played since coming back from injury. They were fine with Malik Willis, which is an interesting subplot of this. But the way I'd frame it, is it time to have a conversation about Jordan Love and how good he actually is compared to the expectations we put on him after the way he closed last season?
I don't think so. What I would say is the concerning thing is to me that he's making the same mistakes each week. And what we saw last year from him was growth as the year went along, right? Like he was halfway through the year, Charlie, you had him in a tier with like Joe Flacco. Before Joe Flacco even broke out. Like he was
that would have been very prescient if I'd done that.
Yes. But he improved dramatically as the year went along. He made fewer mistakes. I think he threw 2 interceptions the second half of last season. Like he was really efficient with the football. And if you want to say, okay, maybe he's a little lucky, sure, but he's getting away with interceptions this year. It's not like every bad throw he has is getting picked off. He's making he had a throw in this game where he was scrambling and half tried to lob the ball out and a 2-yard throw and was picked off.
That was Richardsonian.
Yes, a horrific decision. And then he had an identical play 2 quarters later.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that scares me. You can't even pin this on, there was bad weather. The backup center had some bad snaps. He makes these mistakes week after week after week. And I'm okay with the guy throwing interceptions if you have a ton of explosive plays. That's going to happen. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are doing just fine, even though he's throwing too many interceptions. But I think the concern is it felt like he'd already had this past him. It felt like he had grown exponentially last year as the season went along. And now it kind of seems like he's still really an inexperienced passer, doesn't avoid making the same mistakes week after week, series after series.
I think the shocking part to me is the inexplicable, the Richardsonian or the Levisian interceptions that he throws that are just ridiculous and don't make sense. Those things are scary to me, and I'm sure that you can go through even great quarterbacks' careers and find a few of them, but not in such a short period of time over the course of a couple seasons. So your question, should we be having a conversation about him?
It's time to have a conversation.
I mean, we can have a conversation, but I think the sample size, maybe it's a conversation about should they have paid him or not. I don't know, but I think the sample size for him is still so small to know exactly who he's going to be. We know how high his ceiling is, and we know that he can play for a stretch where he has a high ceiling without these ridiculous low floors. This season has been plagued by injuries and other concerns that I think you can excuse it away. So he kind of started out last year where it was all right, maybe he's not good at all. Then the end of the season, it's maybe he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. And now he's both at the same time. So I'm not sure where he's going to finally land, but I think I'd err on the side of really good given the coach that he has and his ability that he's shown. So I don't think it's time to have a conversation, as you would put it.
I love that we ended up he ended up actually being in a tier with Joe Flacco, that he's really good, but he can also black out for a 6-week stretch and play like the best quarterback in football.
Were you guys surprised they didn't go to Malik Willis in the second half of this game? Because the groin injury, the weather, they were trailing. I was shocked. It seemed like the perfect scenario to just say, hey, Jordan, take the second half off. You're not 100%. You just tweaked your groin on a play, throwing underneath for fantasy points. Just let's get Malik in the game. And I was shocked they didn't go to Malik Willis in this game.
Well, I mean, I guess the reason why I wasn't shocked is because the Malik Willis offense feels like it was very different from the Jordan Love offense, which I know that they probably didn't forget the plays that they ran for the Malik Willis offense, but I don't think that they prepared this week in the same way that they would. And the expectation that you get Malik Willis out there trying to run the plays that they planned for this offense, it might get even worse. But for a protection standpoint, maybe they could have pulled him, but I don't think they could have pulled him and hoped that things would have gotten better.
Bill, it was the moment when after that completion when Jordan Love literally couldn't run up to clock the ball.
Yes.
I was like, I think I texted you during. I was like, he's hurt again. He's done. To me, at that point, it's like, for what, for who, for why? And I know they probably thought they were still in the game against the Lions, but the weather was so bad, and I feel like there's such a risk of re-injury with those soft tissue injuries when you're on a wet field. That's why I was like, oh yeah, he'll be out, and Willis will just be running the damn ball for the next 30 minutes.
Did you see Amon-Ra's shirt?
Yeah, Green Bay sucks. That was awesome.
I mean, I feel like when players in the modern football are like much more fashionable than they have in the past, where they are clearly like trying to walk the runway, a black shirt with white letters that says Green Bay sucks is the most Detroit Dan Campbell thing you can do. And I kind of loved it. Most of the time stuff like that is kind of like, all right, man, yes, what are you doing? It's kind of annoying. But that combined with a do-rag, yeah.
Did you get this shirt at a kiosk at a mall that no longer has active stores but just kiosks open? That is exactly what you're looking for in your pregame attire.
Man. I haven't been in a mall in a while, but I remember when I was like young, the kiosks in the mall were just like whatever the latest trend were. They would like flip them out. I remember when I was young, it was like all long white tees. You could walk in the mall, it's just like kiosks full of long white tees, and then it was like all the motorcycle jackets. Cheap motorcycle jackets at kiosks. What do they put at kiosks now?
Auntie Anne's.
Mostly cell phone stuff. Really, the cell phone has
stuff.
been the biggest boon for the kiosk industry, both because now if you want to sell stuff, you can sell cell phone stuff at a kiosk. And if you are a kiosk employee, your life is infinitely better by having access to a cell phone. Much better job now that you have 8 hours a day to be on your phone as opposed to just sitting there looking at the mall.
Cases, I'm sure.
Last thing on this game. Tom Brady criticized the Brian Branch ejection. He's not allowed to criticize the refs. People were tweeting about this online because he's now an owner or governor of the whatever it's called now of the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders. How funny would it be if they actually, and Sam Monson tweeted this out, if they actually redact draft picks are punished because Tom Brady was criticizing Brian Branch's ejection?
Yeah, I think there's a little, he has like a little safe zone where he can get away with it. I don't think they're going to come for him, but that would be pretty hilarious. I mean, do you want to talk about that ejection at all? Like, I am surprised. I normally fall on the side of defense all the time, but I didn't think it was. I mean, I guess the precedent has kind of been set that you don't eject players for a play like that. However, it was hard for me after watching Chris Olave get knocked out earlier in the day to then like get myself all in a tizzy because you threw a guy out for what seemed like he obviously like was trying to hit it. Like, it didn't seem like a mistake. I know football. Yeah. I played. I don't know if you knew that before. I know football moves fast. So, like, I understand that it's hard to redirect. But, like, the ball flies past his face, and then he tilts his head down and slams it into the receiver's head.
A lot of people saying he was a human piss missile on that play.
That is funny.
You can't be shocked at the call. If you want to say it wasn't intentional, that it was bang, bang, play too fast, I'm willing to understand that. But like what happened was an ejectable offense. And I am a little surprised they actually called it. But again, this is New York calling it as opposed to the refs in the field calling it. And New York can do that if they feel like it's necessary.
I'm surprised they called it. And I guess also it's like the reaction of the general sports public was like outraged. And these are also the same people that are like, Tua should retire. This game is too dangerous. Concussions are absurd. It's also kind of like, I'm not saying that you should like applaud the NFL, but like just kind of step back and be quiet. Like, oh, that sucks for Brian Branch. They should do this. It should be consistent because there were other hits today where they could have had the same result. This one just kind of was the one time that they did, I guess, because it's a big game with all the eyes at 4:00.
And there wasn't an injury for them to virtue signal about, so they could be mad at the call.
Yeah, I guess that's the question is like if he would have stayed down.
Yeah.
I'm sure no one would have said Brian Branch shouldn't be thrown out, but I wonder if people would have reacted like Brian Branch is such a terrible human. This is so awful. Yeah.
As someone, yes.
Jackson.
Oh yeah, that's right.
If there's a way to sort of steal some internet points for empathy, people will do it. They'll find a way.
You'll find a way to mock them and talk about piss missiles.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. If you actually feel that empathy, I will respect it. But if you're just doing it for likes,
how do you tell the difference? I guess it's like
come on, you can tell the difference.
Yeah. If you tweet it at all, that's a problem.
No.
All right.
It's when you just see that your entire timeline is tweets of this, and you're like, gotta get in on this. Gotta make sure everyone knows that I am also opposed to helmet violence.
Charlie's building an AI bot to detect empathy and using it on football Twitter.
Oh, come on. You guys know.
Oh, gosh. I feel like Charlie is on some sort of evolutionary scale to a place where I don't want him to go. He's way early in it, but like this is the first step. Like, oh, you're faking empathy. This is the first step. For 12 steps from now, Charlie won't even speak to me in the streets. It's going to be a problem.
This is we're now getting some before the show conversation, which Bill said that Bill told Domonique that he's been trying to convince me that I'm cool for a year and a half, and now I'm acting with slightly more confidence. It's surprising, Domonique.
You are cool. I mean, I'm Frankenstein. All
right, next game. Falcons 27. Cowboys 21. The Cowboys season, era, and team is in disarray. Dak Prescott left with a hamstring injury. He's getting an MRI on it. He was seen on the sideline, and I quote saying, "We suck."
Wait,
Well,
really?
he was mouthing it.
Yes.
So you didn't need
Oh, it
professional.
doesn't count if you're about to.
Yeah,
I mean, I think he was saying it.
Right, but
we couldn't hear it.
There wasn't a microphone there, but it didn't feel like you needed professional lip readers. It was secretly-
Dak is tapping on the microphone. Excuse me, Atlanta. We suck. No,
right.
you still said it. It still counts.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to tell us, Dak. It's pretty obvious.
We know.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. This was a 6-point game that felt almost as bad as the blowout that they had to the Lions earlier in the season. It was disastrous, and so many of the issues point directly at the coach in this case, where it's like a very ugly fake punt. There's 12 men on the field during one play. There's 10 men on the field on another play. I don't know if you guys know this, but you need 11. You don't want to have one less. You don't want to have one more. They managed to do both in the course of this game, and it just seemed like such a mess that was compounded by the fact that their big money quarterback, Dak Prescott, said we suck, but also messed up his hamstring and his hand in the course of this game and didn't even finish. It was an ugly, ugly affair.
You're not excited for Cooper Rush conversation this week, Dominique?
Oh gosh,
You know
No,
it's coming.
I'm not. No, it's not.
You know they're going to win with nobody. What are you talking about? They're going to win with Cooper Rush this week, and then you're going to get the maybe they should have just stuck with Cooper Rush all along conversation. Guaranteed that is happening.
I don't know, because like they couldn't move the ball once Dak was out of the game.
No. He's saying after they win.
Oh, after they win next week.
It's not this. You don't think that they're going to make an argument, that anyone's going to make an argument for Cooper Rush this week, do you, Bill?
No, nobody's not going to be crazy. They have to win one game with Cooper Rush, and then people will take that disingenuous logical leap to attack Dak.
Someone's got to zag and just say Trey Lance.
Might be me.
That's a good one. I mean, I think I do have a little bit of a shocking take here, is with Dak out, and CD also looked like he got hurt in this game, and this season is effectively over. Mike McCarthy probably won't be back next year. He might make it through the season because
might not be back next week.
Yeah, Jerry is reluctant to fire guys in season, it seems. So maybe he'll finish this season. But with him there looking like a very obvious lame duck, their starting quarterback, their best offensive player are out. Zeke Elliott apparently is not committed to the team in some way.
Literally not showing up if he doesn't want to for parts of the week's preparation.
Their best players on defense won't play in games because they're injured, but also won't include Dak's name in the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Like, this season is going to be abysmal, and they are going to have a very high draft pick in a draft that probably isn't as quarterback centric as last year's draft, maybe, but you could be in a position where you might want to start the rebuild, right?
Ooh, okay. So I see where you're going here. Mm-hmm. You're too smart for the Cooper Rushes of the world. You're going moving forward. We got to get this going, get Dak out of here. We need to start the rebuild. That's a smarter, bad argument that they've given, that Dak's extension hasn't even started yet. But I appreciate that you're at least taking it a step forward than your typical Monday morning commentator. I respect that, Domonique Foxworth.
So I guess I get what you're saying. It is a little bit on the fringe of conversation, but they have a lot of holes that they will not be able to solve in one draft. They have valuable assets. One very valuable asset in Dak Prescott.
And Parsons, it's hugely valuable.
Right, but I assume that he's one that, actually, I'm not 100% sure. Some people think that he may not be there long-term either, but I assume that he's one that they would want to keep because he's so young and so talented. With him, CD, and Trayvon Diggs, you have three really quality players that are young enough that you could try to build around. The only point that I'm making here is it's the same team. It's the Herschel Walker trade all over again, right? It's you could argue that this team, as it's currently constructed, not through any fault of Dak's, is not going to win a championship. Your best chance going forward is trying to replenish this roster with picks that you could generate from moving on. I know, I'm spinning it all the way to the future, but would you want to talk about the Cowboys' chances the rest of this year? Is that more interesting?
No, but I also remember the last time this was going down. And that was 2020 when Dak messed up his ankle early in the year. They had hired Mike Nolan as their defensive coordinator, and their defense was trash. They couldn't fit the run. They were giving up big plays week after week. They looked years away. And then they fired Mike Nolan. They hired Dan Quinn. They got CeeDee Lamb playing well on a rookie deal. They got Trevon Diggs playing well on a rookie deal. And they had a high draft pick, and they drafted Micah Parsons. And suddenly, defense went from like 29th to 1st overnight, and they were suddenly a playoff team again. And I think that is the reason why the Cowboys won't do this. Because from their perspective, 4 years ago, they went through this and made a couple of changes, got one draft pick right, and it flipped. And they went from being a team that looked like they were lost and just giving Dak a significant contract to a team that looked like they were a perennial 10-11 win team again for the next several seasons. And I think that's the story Jerry Jones is going to tell himself when he approaches this offseason. I think there's a decent shot they won't even fire Mike McCarthy. I know that it seems logical, and I know that we think Jerry Jones is like this guy who flies off the handle really quickly, but think about how long he held on to Jason Garrett when Jason Garrett was in charge of the team. We fired him every single year, and he came back for a decade.
Right. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike McCarthy is in a last year of his deal. Like, he's a lame duck coach. So it's going to be really hard. Keeping someone who is struggling is a lot easier than signing someone to a contract extension after this year goes as poorly as it feels like it's going. Like, I get what you're saying, and I understand and agree with you on Jerry Jones' track record. But in this scenario, you are saying that he is going to offer this man a contract extension after this team doesn't win double-digit games. That's
Domonique,
hard for me to buy.
Did this man just bring Ezekiel Elliott back or what? Like, this man, he is loyal to a fault. If Jerry Jones remembers you from a few years ago and you were good, this man may do anything. He might sign off the team to you if he looks at you the right way. So I agree. I think they should, and I think there's a decent chance they will. I'm just saying it feels like it should be a guarantee, and I wouldn't say it's a guarantee. I wouldn't be shocked if he was back there next year, although I do think they're going to make a change at defensive coordinator if he does come back.
Is it a good job? Because there's been a lot of talk about should Bill Belichick be the coach of the Cowboys? Why wasn't it Belichick or Vrabel? But what we've essentially talked about in this conversation is that your paths forward are try and build around the margins with several incredibly highly paid players and a quarterback who's excellent but is not Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, or trade that quarterback, start from scratch, see what you can get. Like, is that I know it's the Cowboys, but is this appealing of a job for either a hotshot offensive guy or a Belichick?
I don't think it's an appealing job for Bill Belichick or Vrabel or somebody out like that with some level of cachet and choices. Or Belichick, I think, is his most important thing to him is getting to this record, would be my guess, and that you want to go to a ready-made winner. I guess they have a quarterback there, so maybe Belichick believes that his defensive mind can fix the issues on defense, and a new running back and a couple offensive linemen is a way that you could turn it around. So I could see that someone with that track record convincing themselves of that, but I have to believe that there's a better option out there than coming to Dallas. I don't think that people are interested in working for Jerry Jones and working in an organization, especially people who have the type of negotiating leverages I would think Belichick and Vrabel would have.
Two things here. Number one, Dak Prescott was number 2 in the MVP balloting last season. It's not like this is a guy who hasn't been good in 5 years.
Right.
He was good, very good last year. I mean, this man has been basically a lock to win you 8 or 9 games a year every single season. So I'm not throwing Dak too far down because he struggled this year. I don't think that's going to keep continuing. And
this is fun being on the opposite side of the Dak conversation. I like it over here.
There's like a Freaky Friday thing going on with
you're the cool guy.
I puffed my chest out and he's like, trade Dak Prescott.
I didn't say trade him. Okay, go ahead.
You kind of did. Best path forward.
And then the one thing the Cowboys have that other teams don't have is the guy who is like the modern day equivalent of Lawrence Taylor. I think that might appeal to Bill Belichick a little bit. So, I mean, there's better jobs out there, I would say. There's less stressful jobs out there. But again, this is a job where you have built-in talent, not an incredibly tough division. You have a coach or owner who's generally very patient with letting you coach and build a roster and win games. I don't think this is really as bad of a job as you're making it out to be.
You're probably right, but Bill Belichick is too busy dressing up for Halloween to be
This
focused
man's
on.
got too many media jobs to keep coaching. Come on.
I do have one question about the Cowboys thing before we move on. Why does their offense suck this year? Because they were an incredible offense last year, like you talked about, and Dak was playing some of the best football of his career. He was number 2 in the MVP voting, and a lot of that stuff is like still there. They didn't really have a running game last year. I know now it's non-existent, but like Brandon Cooks was their number 2 wide receiver last year. It's not like, or is the difference really that stark? Why? I don't quite understand why their offense is so much worse.
The offense, what I saw in the playoff game, and I anticipate is a similar thing happening now, is the offense is pretty consistent and like juxtaposed with some other teams that are dynamic in their game planning. Is they're more of a we do what we do type of team. And when someone figures that out and you don't have great players, like I've told you this before about like playing Florida State back when I was in college, like they ran like 5 plays. But everybody on their team was better than everybody on most of the teams that they played against. So it didn't matter. And that doesn't work in the NFL very often unless you have like special players, particularly when you've run it all for one entire season. Then the playoffs, you get it figured out. And then you come back out and think that you're going to eat people alive on this trip slant and kill them on the seam. Like that's all you've been doing. And like no matter how good your quarterback is, and we've seen Dak throw a ball through the eye of a needle on those seam routes a number of times. Yeah, piss missiles. But it's hard to live that way when you don't have the tackle that you are accustomed to trusting and you don't have some support in the running game.
Yeah, that's the part that I think makes this difficult is the offensive line is worse. Tyler Biotish has been a big loss, much bigger than we expected. Tyron Smith hasn't been great for the Jets, but Tyler Guyton has not been good at left tackle. You know, the line has been much worse. Terrence Steele, their right tackle, is just not a good football player at this point, unfortunately. So you have multiple spots. You're below average on the offensive line. You don't have a running game consistently. They were actually better on Sunday with Zeke suspended and Dalvin Cook barely playing. It was really the Rico Dowdle show, and that was a positive for them. So they finally got their running game going. But you have one receiver who anybody is scared of. And you can do things to make your life easier. They don't really do them. I mean, last year, their numbers improved dramatically after the bye because they really ramped up their use of motion. They were one of their most static teams in football before the bye, and they were like league average or so after the bye. And that was an enormous leap forward for them. They were really good with motion. And this year, they're back to like 29th in motion. Mike McCarthy's blamed that on, we're trailing in games. You can't really do that when you're down. Number one, you can. Number two, even in the first half of games, they're 30th in motion rate at the snap. So to me, it feels like they haven't really learned the things that help them be more modern and give them answers last year. And they've kind of gone back to what they do, and they're not talented enough to pull that off 1 through 11 on offense.
And I would throw in there a point that you alluded to, and they're trailing in a lot of games. I feel like last year they were not trailing in a lot of games. Their defense was creating turnovers early in games, and Deron Bland was breaking records for pick sixes, and Micah Parsons seemed like he caused the sack fumble in every game. Then you're up 14-0 by the end of the first quarter. It's a lot easier to play offense. It's a lot easier to do everything. And when you're not in these positive game scripts, it puts you in a real tough situation, and they aren't talented enough or creative enough offensively to come back.
What an unsatisfying answer for Charlie. Like, is this nuanced, like 4 or 5 step problem? Charlie, you wanted like one player to blame, did you not?
No. It's always the offensive line.
It's pretty much always that.
So then we come back. Like I was like, oh, yep, that makes sense. So we always come back to. Can I ask a tiny bit about the Falcons side of it?
Sure.
Is this team a good team? Or is this really just a classic Kirk Cousins team? Because the vibes are great right now. And you know what I mean by this. Like,
I think a Kirk Cousins team is a good team.
Yeah, a team scores a lot of points, it's a good team, and then it's like not when it matters. Not trustworthy in high leverage situations, I think would be the more thoughtful way.
How are we on a Kirk Cousins question and you haven't done your very favorite Kirk Cousins impersonation? Like it must be done.
We fight, no cap. There it is. You ready?
Oh man, Kirk Cousins doing this. We cover your trap, we take over your trap is so.
We fight no cap.
That's his favorite part of it is we fight no cap. It's so uncomfortable. No one gets hyped for that. I think that's the problem with this team.
Could you, if you were a hip hop artist, could you pay Kirk Cousins to not get excited about your song? It feels like that would be a positive. Like there was a bridge in New York, the Kosciuszko Bridge, and the traffic was so bad and it was so poorly maintained that at some point it felt like it was actively insulting the person who it was named after, and I felt like the family should try and get it named after somebody else in response, because it was dragging down the name Kosciuszko. I feel like that's happening with Kirk Cousins here.
The Kirk Cousins thing to me is like Kirk Cousins, like this is my buddy Greeny pulls this off effectively, where you tell him to do something because we are laughing at him because he's like super starch white guy. All right, Greeny, say this, it'll work. Kirk Cousins is the same guy. We're like, hey, if someone comes up to you and puts chains on you, or someone comes up to you and forces you to swag surf, that is fine. It's funny because we are laughing at you. When you start to think that you're actually cool enough to pull this off, then we're like, oh, you're trying to really do it? Don't really do it.
Oh no, Bill, I've got some soul searching to do.
I love the idea of Kirk Cousins being forced to swag surf.
He's not being forced to swag surf, but like Kirk Cousins, when he is swag surfing, someone has encouraged him to swag surf. He's not kicking off the swag surf.
No, you're saying it's under duress, to be clear. That's what I've been picturing.
It's not. It's more like when your dad, you set him down and try to get him to play video games with you. It's like, hey, I kind of want to be here. I don't really know what I'm doing. I wouldn't do this on my own, but it's fun when we do it together. Kirk, it's fun when we do it together. It's not fun when you decide that you're going to rap. And Charlie has some soul searching to do because he believes that he is Kirk Cousins in this situation.
That's right. That's right.
I lost my guy. No, you're actually cool.
See, now they're so disingenuous.
I'm not cool. I'm not cool. I don't determine who's cool. I'm 41-year-old married man with 3 kids. I'm far from cool.
I neither am I. Hemorrhaging confidence. So I guess we're all saying not a serious team.
Seemingly no.
I mean, the defense is an issue. They have a bunch of playmakers. The problem with ruling anybody out this season is it feels like the league in general is aggressively mediocre. So, like, the question is, can they beat the Lions? I think out of 10 games, they beat them 3 times. It just happens to be if they are lucky in that situation. So I don't think the Lions are some unbeatable juggernaut like the 49ers were last year. But I do, or the Eagles were a couple years ago. Like, there's no team out there like that. But the Lions are the closest to it, and the Falcons are not.
Here's how we'll know. They can let us know whether they should be taken seriously, because this team, before Sunday, they had 6 sacks through 8 games. That, I believe, is the second fewest any team has had over the last 20 years. Now, they had 3 sacks on Sunday against the bad Cowboys offensive line, but Grady Jarrett, their best lineman, got hurt. So if the Falcons want to be taken seriously, trade deadline's coming up this week. Get yourselves a pass rusher. Get yourselves 2 pass rushers alongside Matt Judon. Show us that you actually believe you can beat the Lions this year, because you're not beating them with 1 sack every other week.
Dang, it's almost like they signed a guy for $50 million and then spent a top 10 pick on his backup when they really needed a pass rusher.
Who was the pass rusher in the draft that was just going to change their team?
I don't know. Latu. Jared Verse has been very good.
They've been very good.
Byron Murphy before he got injured. Johnny Newton, he's a game wrecker.
There was no Myles Garrett in this draft.
That's true. But Myles Garrett also didn't go at the back end of the top 10.
Fair point. But I mean, that's the point. That's why
they could have signed our boy Van Ginkel.
Yeah.
The Gink.
Could have been Ginkin.
But I mean, that's the point. It's like if they were at the top of the draft, that's a different conversation. But anyway, I'm not going to defend that pick anymore.
All right, guys, get your hands up.
Throw them up.
It's time for the check-in presented by Allstate. We are checking in on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, who it was a throttling of the Denver Broncos. Lamar has now tied the record for most games with a perfect passer rating in history. He is also the fewest games in the NFL season to get to 20 passing touchdowns and 500 rushing yards in the same year. He has a legitimate chance to go for 4,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards this season. Derrick Henry has a chance to go for 2,000 rushing yards. This is against a Broncos defense that we came in thinking was very, very good. I don't even know if I have a question other than, did you learn anything about this sort of juggernaut Ravens offense from today's performance?
I mean, they could have scored 100 points if they wanted to, and it seemed like they had their way with this team. After the first drive where they got sacked out of field goal range, I think Lamar ended up having 3 incomplete passes, and 2 of them were drops, and 1 of them was off a bad snap. Other than that, like, he was completely perfect. When he is as accurate as he's been now and as decisive as he's been, this team feels, or this offense feels legitimately unstoppable because they have advantages. They have enough really good players and a really talented, smart quarterback that there's no team that's perfectly built to cover all of their players. And they are the opposite of the Cowboys in that from game to game, if you couldn't see their jerseys, it'd be hard for you to figure out their offensive system because they design it to take advantage of the opponent that they're going against. And that to have a quarterback who's able to do that from week to week is incredibly helpful, and players that can do that because you can always find the matchup or the situation that you like from game to game, from quarter to quarter, from half to half. What I will say that looking back at their game so far this season is they do have all these skill player advantages, but when I do see this juggernaut of an offense struggle, it's when they go up against a D lineman that is special because they are weaker across the offensive line, and they can't compensate there in the same way that they do with their 2 great tight ends and Zay Flowers and obviously Derrick Henry and Justice Hill catching deep passes. Like they have
wheels out of the backfield, 35 yards downfield.
But so like you go through their EPA offensively so far this season, and they're like in the teens up to the 20s against everyone except for Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and Chris Jones. Those are the games where they get down into low single digits because those guys create such a problem for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, the book on Lamar has always been make him one-dimensional, make him throw the football, don't let him run. Lamar had 3 carries for 4 yards in this game. Like his running was not a threat. Yes, he extended plays with his legs. I think he had a scramble here and there for a first down. I think he had an 11-yard run in this game, but he was 16 and 19 for 280. Domonique said these 3 incompletions were 2 drops and a bad snap. Like, you know, he was one-dimensional in this game, and in a one-dimensional game against the best defense in football by the numbers, he ripped them up. And he ripped them up with Zay Flowers as his number 1 receiver. It is like he was comfortably the MVP last year. I think the 49 to 50 voters picked him as the MVP last year. And across the board, he's not just playing better than he did last year. He's playing significantly better than he was last year to me. He is a cut above the player we saw dominating the league a year ago. And that is, to Dominique's point, like they do look unstoppable for stretches of time. It didn't feel like the Broncos had any hope of stopping them in this game. It felt like Bo Nix had to drop 40 for them to even have a shot at competing in this game. It was really, really impressive. And I think Lamar, to me, is comfortably the MVP for the first half of the season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see them go up against the Bengals again because that is a matchup that their defense will have trouble with. Their defense didn't have much trouble today because they're going up against Bo Nix and the Broncos.
Bill, you're saying something that's really interesting about this. Obviously, he does seem even better this year, but the company of guys who have won 3 MVPs are, if he wins it this year, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Jim Brown, Brett Favre, Johnny Unitas. And that's an insane group that he would be ascending into. And I know Peyton Manning won his 3rd MVP when he was 31 years old. I assume Jim Brown was even younger than that because he...
Yeah, Jim Brown was probably 19.
Yeah, because he won his first MVP as a rookie and retired after 9 years in the NFL. But Lamar would be on a track with this type of hardware that is incredibly unique because he's 27 years old right now. And I don't even think it's been a question that he's been the best player in the NFL this year. Like you said, last year he won it comfortably. Last year it didn't feel like there was a definitive MVP candidate for a lot of the season. It was Purdy, it was Christian McCaffrey, Lamar, and Josh Allen, and it sort of bounced around. This year, like you turn it on every Sunday, and it's like this guy's just better than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar does nail down all the MVP checkpoints, and anybody who is looking for a reason to have MVP, he's kind of answered it. Like if you want the passing, you want the highlight plays, you want the centerpiece of the offense, you want the story. The only thing that's left out as like best record in the NFL or best record in the conference. That's the one knock against him. But you look at the teams with better records, and it's like Patrick Mahomes has more interceptions than touchdowns, and like Jared Goff is Jared Goff, which holds him back. And so Lamar seems who?
Russ Wilson, MVP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you get into the arguments where I wouldn't say Russ next. I'd say Jaden Daniels next before Russ, where the argument becomes more about watching the demonstration of the difference between the team without him and with him.
Yeah.
I think Jaden Daniels has a legitimate argument there, but I don't think you can argue that Jaden Daniels is better than Lamar Jackson. Then you're just it's a semantic situation there where it's like his value is obviously enormous.
If the Chiefs go undefeated, do they have to give the MVP to Patrick Mahomes?
No, I mean
they're 17-0, and the guy you were saying, you're like, he's Jordan. You're not gonna feel silly not giving him the MVP.
No, man. I mean Chris Jones, maybe. I don't know, but like you're saying, if they go undefeated, and then from this point forward, he doesn't throw interceptions.
No, he does the same first half of the season, like 16 touchdowns, 18 interceptions.
That's impossible.
Exact same ratio, but they're 17-0.
And we have to stop saying wins are not a quarterback stat. And we're just like, you have to stop saying it.
I never said it.
Can Spags win the MVP?
Yeah,
is that possible?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he'll probably get some votes, but I think that'd be kind of absurd. At which point, then you're leapfrogging Jared Goff at that point. I mean, I guess
and Daniels.
Yeah, and Jaden Daniels is like, these guys to me feel. Where's Mahomes right now? Is he like
second? He has the second shortest odds after Lamar.
That's insane, but I guess that's just about like name recognition and like expectation.
And they're undefeated.
Well, they're undefeated, and I think people believe Mahomes is going to turn it around, right?
Yeah.
That he's going to be the old Mahomes second half of the year. I don't see any reason to think that's going to change. He's been this guy for a year and a half. That they keep winning, but I don't think he can be this guy the rest of the year and win the MVP, even if they go 17-0.
How do you who's the most valuable player on their team right now? You would say Mahomes?
Definitely Mahomes. Can you imagine if they put in like
Chris Jones?
So that, I mean, is the most valuable player
You're telling me
on
they
the
put in Chad Henne?
So
is the replacement for Patrick Mahomes?
I think if you take Chris Jones off their defense drops to middle of the pack, and they don't win.
Yeah.
Any more football games.
Yeah, but think about how many games that it's been like an absolute rock fight, and then Mahomes just pulls it out of his like keister at the last minute.
Right. You know why they're in these games, in these rock fights? It's 17-14. Is because
Brett Veach.
Because Mahomes hands them a rock on the 10-yard line. It's like, here's this rock. Toss it at us, guys.
By the way, I've been told by producers that Carson Wentz is actually his backup, not Chad Henne at this point.
It's Carson Wentz.
Even better. My point is now stronger.
Chad Henne retired, I believe, 2 years ago, Charlie.
Whatever. Him and Mike Hart are still in my heart.
Man. So, I mean, is there ever... So that's just like... positional value. Is there ever anybody on any team that's more valuable than a quarterback? No.
You remember Tom Moore? We don't practice Peyton Manning.
Yeah, but I mean, whatever. All right, this is a waste of time at this point.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes is a great player.
You really don't think Patrick Mahomes is the most valuable player on the Chiefs?
We're having two different conversations. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes. If there's a sinking ship and we have to save one player, it's Patrick Mahomes.
Let me rephrase
but the most impactful player on this team so far has not been Patrick Mahomes.
I was just saying,
Patrick
most
Mahomes
responsible for their winning.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I mean, I get your point. The argument would just be like quarterbacks are just more important than anybody else. But like he has been.
Oh yeah, I know.
Mediocre. It's like this is if this were another name player, you would not be saying this.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all. So we're on the same page.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. What else you want to talk about?
Thank you for asking. I want to talk about the NFC West. The Cardinals, the resurgent Cardinals, the Trey McBride show. They're 5-4, leading the division. The Rams, who Bill wrote off for dead and said it was over like 3 weeks ago.
Did you see the interception Matthew Stafford threw today that Ernest Jones dropped?
Yeah.
The worst pass. It was worse than any Jordan Love throw, any Anthony Richardson throw. It was a horrific pass.
He drilled it right at him, and he just jumped for no reason. That's like
it's the value of the piss missile.
He got startled by this piss missile.
This is a tough throw. But yeah, I mean, the division in general is interesting because there are a bunch of like mediocre teams with good quarterbacks.
Yes.
Like it's and that feels like they just feel like a division of spoilers.
Everyone has a negative point differential except for the 49ers.
Yeah, they just feel like a division of spoilers. The 49ers the only team that if, again, we're back to this point about McCaffrey, if McCaffrey comes back, he could change this entire team's fortune. Everybody else in that division is good enough to like beat one of the top teams, but we actually don't think they're better. They're just gonna come in and like just fuck up our playoffs by like Geno just blacking out and knocking the Lions out the playoffs. But we're all gonna be like, you guys aren't really that good.
The Rams are, I mean, obviously the McCaffrey's the question here, is to your point. Is like, I know you mentioned this a lot. Like if he comes back and the 49ers offense is like reinvigorated, obviously we'll feel very different after a couple weeks. The reports were where they're just going to hit it hard in practice during the bye week and then again, see if he could go coming out of it. But to me, it's the Rams of that team of the like, oh, they could really F up our playoffs because no one's going to, and now I'm in full football cliche, no one's going to be psyched to see Sean McVay game plan and Stafford and assuming everyone's healthy, Stafford and those receivers play them in a playoff game. It's just like a pain in the and they're really explosive on a random game by game basis.
We made it through 1 week with Puka Nacua before he got hurt again in practice, and he was quiet this game before he got kicked out.
Ejected.
And you're already penciling them in for both those guys are going to be here in the postseason? Because if they are, that is a scary thing. What are the chances that either of those guys are in showing up in January? Very slim to me.
This is also we've seen him do it before situation where it's like you have more faith in this team because they have the same quarterback in the same jersey who just won the Super Bowl not too long ago. But as I'm sure Bill remembers, and you probably do too, Charlie, there were a lot of plays in that run where were a lot like the one where he threw directly to the Seahawks. And that's the thing is like Matt Stafford, we remember that run and that no-look pass on the game-winning drive, and we know that he's capable of making incredible throws, but he's not one of those top-of-the-league guys that is going to go for a long stretch without giving the other team an opportunity to beat him. And that's the thing. It's like I know no team is going to be excited to have a Super Bowl champion quarterback with a great coach coming in, but there are going to be some plays when the DBs are pretty excited when the ball is coming directly at their face. If they catch them, they'll win.
Tariq Woolen on the first play of overtime, when he was like, you could see him lining up, like waiting. He was planning his celebration after the interception, and then Tyler Johnson jumps in front of him for a catch. The difference between those teams, Charlie, and this Rams team is that team had Aaron Donald and Von Miller, and this team does not have Aaron Donald and Von Miller. And I know they have Jared Verse, who I know you just said is good. They have some good players, but they are not the same caliber of defense. And Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, given some of the horrible run-heavy moments they had in that postseason, they needed the defense to bail them out. I don't think this defense can bail this Rams team out week after week into a postseason run.
What did you think about the Seahawks' decision to go for it in overtime? I know that the
loved it.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
Yeah,
I was like, "This is you got to try and win this one." But I saw people giving him crap, being like, "Take the field goal." But I felt also it was even validated by how quickly the Rams went down and scored.
Yeah,
and validated by the missed interception opportunity. It's like, it's you got them backed up, and it's a tough situation to pass out of. I like going forward. I mean, I think. Brian made this point one of the producers earlier. It's like we don't talk about the plays when they don't go for it, but Brian, the Lions fan, was pointing out how many times the Lions went for it and they were successful, and that changed the score and the dynamic of that game. And it tends to be when it's up in the air, I tend to feel like going for it is always the right decision. It is. When it's a 50-50, I want that, except for when you're the Eagles and you get a penalty and you want to go for two with the tush push.
No,
that's the only time when
I
don't like it.
You got to lean into going. They need to go for two every single drive. Make your fans hate you for how aggressive you are going for 2 on 2-pointers. Teams should be going offside on extra points, dramatically daring the Eagles to go for that 2-pointer.
How have we made it this far without saying mentioning Saquon?
That was the next topic.
Okay.
We just talk about it.
Let's get to Saquon. Let's get to the Eagles. Come on.
The butt hurdle? It was unbelievable.
Oh, that's what we're calling it?
I don't know.
The Birtle?
So that was incredible. Saquon has been preposterous. I think we can all agree we've never seen someone hurdle a professional football player backwards. But this was not a comprehensive performance by the Eagles. They let the Jaguars back into it. But their offense has shown signs of life a little bit over the last couple weeks. Are they starting to reel you back in a little bit?
Last week their defense played much better, like more aggressive in the secondary. That was impressive. But then we come back to this week where they're still getting no pressure. AJ Brown is out again, which
we don't know exactly what happened, but they're speculating a sprained MCL.
He seems to be a very important piece to this offense. Obviously, Saquon is incredible, but I can't get consistency out of them. Over the last season and a half, they've been bad more than they've been good. And I want badly to have a stretch of them being good so I can believe in them again. Nakobe Dean had an incredible interception, but it feels like that's the first great play that Nakobe Dean has made since he left Georgia. Yeah. And these guys are not like the draft picks that we all were high on, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis. Like those guys haven't had the impact that they need to have for this team to be a contender. And since they changed the RPO rules, their offense has been mediocre, I guess.
Well,
I guess they've been better than mediocre, but
the RPO rules. They just
since they started to enforce,
they decided to start enforcing the RPO rules. Yeah, they just remembered that the rules were a thing.
The illegal man downfield. For those who don't know, you can't be downfield. The lineman can't go downfield. They were allowing linemen to give ridiculous run reads 5 yards downfield, and Jalen Hurts was throwing the ball, throwing slants anyway, and no one was throwing flags. And it was the damn cheat code when they ripped through the entire league and went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I like two things can be true about this team, and it even extends to individual players. I mean, Saquon looked like he was playing high school football in this game at times, right? Like he looked like he was just running past people. He was butt hurdling people. He was the human piss missile, Charlie, in this game. He also gave away a touchdown with a fumble on a play where he maybe was touched, but it turns out he wasn't touched according to the refs. And then he failed in the 3rd and 3 that set up that. He was the one who got stuffed on the 3rd down that set up that long field goal that they missed before the Jaguars' final drive, right?
Yeah.
He
slid, right. He slid when he could have maybe moved forward and got a first down. You know, that is the stuff that kind of happens with this team. Like he was incredible against the Falcons and dropped that 3rd down pass that set up the field goal, that set up the game-winning touchdown drive for the Falcons. Like this is a team where they have such incredible individual talent that at a certain point in games, guys just look totally unstoppable. Devontae Smith had like one of the best catches we're going to see all year in this game on 3rd and 22 for a touchdown. And despite all that talent, they have long stretches where they look sloppy, they make mistakes. The only problem is they ran into a team in the Jaguars who are even sloppier and don't have those great individual talents. And as a result, even though they basically handed the Jaguars a touchdown, a game they were dominating went to a 6-point game in a matter of minutes, the Jaguars could not take advantage. And on that final play, decided to throw a wheel route 20 yards downfield to their 3rd string running back against Nakobe Dean, and that turned into a game-ending interception for the Jags.
This is the hard thing about this, because as I've mentioned a few times, is how it feels like the league in general doesn't have like a true like standout couple of teams. It's hard to feel completely confident in any of these teams going 3 weeks in a row or 2 weeks in a row to get to the Super Bowl without like down their leg or doing something ridiculous or having some big mistake. It's hard to imagine that for the Eagles. It's hard to imagine that I guess it's not hard to imagine it for the Lions, but the Lions do have like a defensive issue, a gaping hole that normally you don't win championships if you can't rush the passer in some way. And that's the same thing like the Ravens. We talk about how great their offense look. It feels like it's hard to imagine that they're going to go 3 weeks in a row without their defense giving up enough big plays to put them in a shootout, which then becomes a coin toss who has the ball last. And the same thing with even the undefeated Chiefs, where it's like their offense is so anemic that it's hard to imagine that they can once again ride their defense all the way to and through the Super Bowl. But somebody's going to have to win the Super Bowl.
That's the point, though, Dominique. The Chiefs, they down their leg every single week, and they still win.
How do you just down your leg and then you still, like, look hot?
Listen, it smells. People are going to see, but you know what? If you do it every single week, maybe it's just a cool fashion look. Maybe I just got that stain running down my leg because that's just how I like to dress myself.
That is impressive. Like, I've seen some people pull off some weird looks just because they were like the coolest person. It's like, hey, you can pull it off. But pull off the wet jeans every week.
Bill.
They pull off the wet jeans.
Bill, I made a Happy Gilmore reference before the show, and Dominique had no idea what I was talking about.
Oh, no.
I assume you've seen Billy Madison.
I've seen it. I just didn't remember it. My kids, I watched Friday and next Friday with my older two kids this weekend.
Ooh.
I nailed all of that.
Still holds up?
Oh, Friday holds up. Next Friday, but we're gonna watch Friday after next, and we also watch. My daughter watched Set It Off and Boys in the Hood, which tearjerkers, man, tough ones. And then the way that Queen Latifah, it's bad, sad stuff. She got lit up at the end. It was rough. But anyway, if you make a Friday reference, I get all of Friday.
Billy Madison, in your pants is cool.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that. And then I remember also
me, Miles Davis.
He pulled it off because he was cool. What else from that movie do I remember? That one guy said to his boyfriend, "I like your legs," right? That was good. I thought that was funny.
Dominique's just trying to remember in mid-90s movie quotes.
I mean, I'm trying to remember Billy Madison quotes. Like, I can roll off all the mid-90s Fridays quotes.
Yeah.
My bike punk.
Two Americas.
Mama gave me that chain.
So
he gonna cry when he get to the car.
We're gonna close the show with some.
Tell me who she was.
Are you done?
Sure.
We're gonna close the show with some miscellaneous football.
Janet Jackson, more like Freddie Jackson.
That didn't fit into a topic. I'm just gonna toss them out there. If you got anything, we'll go off of it.
Better put some water on that damn.
Charlie, your producing ability here is you can lump anything into a broader topic to discuss. I feel like you did not hit that this week.
You got fired on your day off.
Well, I didn't know if we'd want to do a Patriots topic, but I thought we have to discuss Drake Maye's final play of regulation.
Hey, Miss Parker.
Okay, enough.
You've lost Dominique.
Oh no, I mean, it challenged me to pull 90s references. I'm just
Dominique's
rolling
attention
through.
span just disappeared.
Drake Maye's final play of regulation was really cool.
He was running around for 35 to 45 minutes, it felt like, and nailed that pass at the end of the game. I felt like through the course of this entire game, I kept noticing or feeling like it wasn't the last drive was like an exclamation point, but through the course of this game, it was like, oh, I think the Patriots got one.
Yeah.
I think the Patriots got a guy. Because this offense looks entirely different now that he's in there. He looks comfortable and confident and competent. He got full of himself and launched a deep ball to close the game out. But like, if I were a Patriots fan, I'd be pretty excited about what it feels like they have. It's different than Mac Jones, guys.
He looks so explosive.
If I'm a Patriots fan, I'd be excited, but I would find other things to do with my Sundays between now and the rest of the year. Like, yes, I want Drake Maye to develop. Fine, you don't gotta watch it. Go do something else. It's still, there's still foliage out here in New England. You got a couple more weeks left where it's pretty outside. Go for a long drive. Go to an art museum. Go do something else with your Sundays for a couple of weeks.
It is a little concerning how many hits he takes. Like, he gets cracked. It's his neck, his back, his neck, and his back.
Oh, I thought you were gonna get into that Kia song.
Yeah, I did too.
Nope, just Friday references.
That's a one America reference right there.
I mean, and he threw it to Hooker at the end, and he said, "I steal, I don't kill." Interceptions. Sorry, somebody at home is eating this up. May not be for you two, but there's somebody who is very impressed and appreciate my rat-a-tat-tat of Friday references.
Dominique. Just booking the wrong guest for these Friday references.
It's all right. It's not for the guests. It's for the audience.
Next miscellaneous football thing. Tua's over-under for passing yards today was 243.5. With 5 seconds left, he had 254 passing yards when they threw that final play and Jalen Waddle ran 24 yards backwards to hit the under. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot of times I hear football's rigged because a guy didn't go over a number, and I just think, then bet the under next time and see what happens.
My big takeaway, I'm not a big gambler guy, but that's a funny, tough loss. But my biggest takeaway from this game was an odd one, but it felt like the Bills didn't want to hit Tua, which surprised me. There were a couple different times where it felt like under normal circumstances, someone would hit the quarterback, but maybe because this Bills team is unique, or maybe it's just everyone in the league is extra cautious about Tua. But it was surprising to me with the game on the line, Tua scrambles and he dives and a player dodges him. And once in the backfield, he's standing there and very hittable. And I think it was Damar Hamlin decided not to hit him. And I guess I applaud them, but I don't get it. It just shocked me. And then I watched Tua throw the game-tying touchdown and walk to the sideline, and 14 different players slapped him on his head. It's like, hold on, guys. What are we doing here? Please stop hitting this man on his head.
Should the Dolphins have gone for 2?
Yeah. I mean, they would have.
You feel sure?
They were it wasn't the end of the game. I mean, it wasn't like to win the game because the Bills would have still had a chance. But yeah,
I mean, and you have Tyreek. Put him in motion, have him run directly to the pylon and throw the ball there after when Tua has it for like 0.5 seconds. That worked for the Chiefs and the Dolphins on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 every single time. You have the cheat code for 2-point conversions.
Didn't work into the first half of the AFC Championship game against the Bengals.
Good counterpoint.
I promise you.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about how I'm a proponent. I guess when I'm not the coach who has to make the decision, I'm always a proponent. I don't know. It seems logical to me, but I guess in that situation, it's not the final play of the game. But it always seems logical to me. It's like, look, can we gain 3 yards? Do we want to win the game? Can we gain 3 yards? Like, that seems like, I know it's not that easy, but we have it right here. Let's go.
I mean, Patriots was the final play of the game.
Right.
And they kicked the extra point and went to overtime. And they
that was
not too well in overtime.
Last one. After the Panthers beat the Saints today, Derek Carr has become the first quarterback to lose to 31 NFL teams. And he plays the Raiders later this season and could lose to the Raiders as well and lose to all 32.
That's sad.
That's all. That's
it. That's it. Nothing else to say about that. Just
you want some too
where
old,
we're
man?
at with the Saints.
Nope. Poor Derek Carr, man. Like I feel like he got blamed for the Olave concussion today too, which
by Michael Thomas.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's
not a reliable narrator on this.
Well, I mean, we all saw it. It was a bad throw. Like
Yeah.
people were calling it a hospital ball. Like it's not intentional, but it just. I think it has to suck. Like if you're the tackle who gives up the pass rusher that ends a quarterback's season or career or something, like it has to be tough. If you're the quarterback that throws a ball to a guy who has a very, very serious history of concussions and then he gets freaking carted off, like whether Michael Thomas tweets about it or not, it still has to freaking suck. So
Definitely.
Let's find a way to end the show on a happy note.
Oh, Daniel Jones threw his first touchdown in MetLife in 672 days.
Yay! Danny Dimes living up to the name. Congratulations to all Giants fans, especially the one sitting right here in front of us, Mr. Bill Barnwell.
You guys.
Let's go, Commanders. Thank you for joining the Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. Once again, thank you to Bill Barnwell, Charlie Kravitz, all the great producers. I love you, Paul. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.